You're on the Howard Stern Wrap-Up Show with John Carey and Jen Kirkman.
Hello, Jen Kirkman.
Oh, hi.
I mean, the rest of you I don't care about.
Oh, my goodness.
This is Andy Rickle,
How are you?
ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, hi, Andy.
Hi, John.
How's How's it going, Andy?
Andy's
Good.
Andy's an old lover of mine.
Is that true?
No,
Yeah.
he's a new lover.
We just talked yesterday, but I'm old.
Yeah,
Andy,
that's what I meant. Yeah.
Andy, I'm sure you heard the interview today, but did you hear how much love Howard was giving you as well?
Yes. Well, why shouldn't he? Jesus, I'm great. No, I mean, I was lucky enough to. I was lucky enough to be a friend of Jimmy Kimmel's, and Jimmy invited me to his wedding, and I got to sit next to Howard at the wedding, which I was absolutely thrilled with, and tried to keep it in my pants about. And then we just got to. I mean, what was the most wonderful thing about meeting Howard in person and hanging out with Howard in person is that he is my favorite kind of person, which is the kind of person that just wants to fuck around and have fun. And no matter where you are, like if you're at a funeral, if there's a good chance to crack somebody up, let's do it, because what's the point of being on this earth if you're not going to have some fun? And we just had a really great time, and he was, everything I expected.
You know, Andy, like today with Conan on for over an hour, we got to hear, quite a bit about his life story. And he was jokey, but he was mostly serious during the whole interview. You've known him for quite a long time, but we as fans sort of got to hear these two go back and forth and cover their careers. And Howard has supported Conan all throughout, when he went to late night and then over to the Tonight Show and then finally now you guys over at TBS. And you obviously have been there for most of that haul. But do you think that people got to see like all sides of Conan? He talked about his depression. He talked about growing up. He talked about a lot of stuff today.
Yeah, definitely. I think, he's always been pretty forthcoming about himself personally. But as he said in the interview, he doesn't do a lot of showbiz bitching in public. He does a lot behind the scenes, but in public, it doesn't seem, acceptable. It's like it's tacky to him. And I think that as time has gone on, and especially, it's weird to be a part of granted, it's bullshit history, but it's like a historic showbiz kerfuffle, one that somebody writes a book about. And I think that, because it was such a big deal, he eventually learned, to talk about it a little bit more than he used to. Whereas I think before, he was aware of that, like he expressed, the phenomenon of somebody asks him about it, he talks about it, and then it's like, Jesus, let it go. He's obsessing over it. And it's like, no, if somebody asks you a question, you can't say, I'm sorry, I can't talk about that because some snarky bitch on the internet will make fun of me. He has talked about it more because I think he's just in a better place about it,
So if you don't talk about it, it sounds like there's more going on, like, oh, no comment. You have to say something.
Andy, I got to ask you a really quick question, because your name came up in the interview today in a big way. And I know, having read my horrendous tweets and all these other things, there's nothing worse than finding out that management has said something horrendous about you. So at what point did you become aware that an NBC executive told Conan he had to get rid of the big fat dildo on the couch?
Are you sure there wasn't actually a dildo on the couch that he just took it too personally?
There could have been. We had some after show parties that maybe there was a few left out there. Actually, and that was Warren Littlefield. Conan won't name names, but I will. That was Warren Littlefield, the programming genius.
But Andy, do you find out about it the next day, or do you find out about it?
No. That was Jeff Ross, our executive producer, not Jeffrey Ross, the stand-up. Right. Jeff Ross, our executive producer, and Conan were really good parents during that whole period, in that they didn't let us know that the landlord had come and knocked on the door and said they were going to evict us. They just said, here's what's for dinner, tomorrow morning we're going to do this. They did a great job of keeping all this information from us because the times when he was on, when they were trying to put him on a week-to-week renewal, we were never aware of that, because Jesus, how can you come to work and be funny when you know that the network is saying, all right, we'll give you 5 more days. That's ridiculous. And they did a great job of kind of keeping all of that from us. And and the reason they were looking for somebody else, part of the luck of it is, at the time too, they were all hot for Greg Kinnear, because he had talked soup, I think.
Now, didn't he? I think he took over. We're talking to Andy Richter, by the way, here, and Jen Kirkman sitting in with us. He took over later with Bob Costas, I think.
Yes.
And I know I had heard rumors that they were kind of grooming him, and Conan was just kind of holding the spot. Which thankfully it didn't end up that way. No offense to Greg Kinnear, but
right. No offense to him, because it certainly is like you can't fault someone for not being able to host a late night talk show. It's certainly a very specialized skill set. And they put Greg Kinnear in front of, they did some test shows with him, apparently. This is what I heard. I wasn't there. And they didn't go that great. So they kind of were like, shit, well, I guess we'll stick with Conan. And then, Letterman coming on and saying, you guys are doing some of the best comedy on television. It was kind of like, to the world, it was saying, who knows better than Dave what it means to put on a funny late night show? And if he says they're doing the funny late night show, then who is some executive in Burbank to say otherwise?
Do you think you would have kept the late night show if you'd had more ping pong tables and lip syncing contests? Oh, no comment,
young lady.
Andy, you're a Howard Stern super fan. I know that. You do such a great job on Celebrity Superfan Roundtable. Hope to get you in here soon. But how does Conan feel about Howard in terms of, not just fandom, but respect of the craft, and, how funny and how difficult it is for Howard to do what he does every day on the air?
Oh, he has a huge amount of respect for Conan, or for Conan. Howard has a huge amount of respect for Conan. No, Conan has a huge amount of respect for Howard. And I think, like most people in show business, there's always been a huge amount of respect. And then for a long time, I don't know if it's exactly fear, but sort of like, you got to pick and choose when you go into Howard and stuff, because Howard, to this day, people are pretty intimidated by going in there. And so, I know I was the first times I went in, and I'm not even like that interesting. I don't have there's no nothing in my skeletons in my closet. So I think that for a long time it was kind of a lot of respect for Howard, but also kind of like, oh, you got to be careful over there, because I even said it once. I think it was on Greg Fitzsimmons' show. I was like, it's nice to be mentioned on Howard, but only for about 30 seconds. Because if they keep talking about you, they're going to find something. They're going to find some reason to chew you up and spit you out.
Well, Andy, in honor of Conan's interview today on Sternthology this afternoon, we're going to be playing the interview with you right after you announced that you were leaving Conan. And I think the opening line is, are you out of your fucking mind when you walked in? So we'll hear how that goes.
Yeah, no, I fully expected that.
That was a Luke Perry moment. It was the same. He did the same thing in Luke Perry.
And I think I answered him. I said if it were, because, he always did that. I remember, Juliana Margulies left ER, and David Caruso, although David Caruso was not such a good idea to leave whatever that show he was on, the first one. But, I said to him, if it was up to you people, Christ would still be a carpenter. 'Cause he always was like, why are they leaving that well-paying job?
All right, Andy, I'm going to let you go. Thanks so much for calling in. I really appreciate it. And again, next time
guys.
Next time you're in town, you should be sure to stop by.
I will. I mainly just called in to talk to Jen.
Say hi to your family for me, and keep it under wraps.
All right, I will.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Andy. Well, there's Conan's sidekick, Andy Richter, chiming in on the interview. Jen Kirkman